Hello and welcome. If you are interested in what kind of biases can influence the decision making when it comes to how you are being evaluated by your manager, or how you as a manager may be evaluating others, this video may be of interest to you. I'm going to look at the performance evaluation and the career progression process from the point of view of possible biases that can influence that decision making process. In my previous video, I talked about the SEEDS model from the Neuroleadership Institute and David Rock, and I'm going to use that model, the 5 categories of biases, as my lenses to look for possible biases in the performance evaluation or the career progression. The format for today's video is as follows. I'm going to show you a clip from the movie What Men Want, when the main character, Ali Davis, is not getting her promotion and she's having her conversations with her manager. So we're gonna look at that conversation, and I'm gonna take a moment to pause when relevant to label the possible biases, to ask questions. If I was in a position to ask questions in that meeting, what kind of questions we could be asking them for those biases. And I'm going to show you evidences from the movie when the bias may have taken place, or some examples, and I'm going to link it all to the real world scenario. My name is Anna Jakielaszek, and I've got over 10 years of HR experience working in the UK for various organizations, and I'm bringing that experience to today's video. I've been in those performance management meetings before. I've spoken with many managers and employees about the career progressions and the possible challenges and what may be influencing the decision-making process. So I'm bringing that experience to you, as well as my passion and interest for people development, management development, diversity, and inclusion. What toolkit do I have for you today? First of all, as I mentioned, the SEEDS model is going to be our lenses through which we're going to look at the performance. I've talked more about the SEEDS model in my previous video, link below, so you may want to watch that movie first. But very briefly, there are 5 categories of biases, and to each of them there's a statement that corresponds with those biases that can help us understand what they are all about. So for similarity, it's we like what's familiar, we like others who are like us. Expedience, it feels right, therefore it must be right. Experience, my perception is accurate. Distance, what's closer, it's better than what's further away. And safety bias, bad is stronger than good. That's the first tool. And the second tool, the pause. Taking a moment to pause, to interrupt our default thinking, our subconsciousness. One of the ways we can mitigate the biases in those processes is by having someone external to listen to our conversation when we evaluate others, and to take a moment to pause when they notice the bias may be taking place. It can be a HR person, or you can hire someone external like myself to listen to your conversations, to your evaluations, and take a moment to pause when the bias may be happening. Okay, so let's listen to that conversation.
Is this a joke, Nick? Huh? I mean, what the fuck do I have to do to make partner?
Breathe. Grab a Fiji. I mean, you know the deal. It has to be unanimous partner approval.
Okay, so who was it? It was Kevin, wasn't it? I knew it was Kevin.
It's anonymous, so I honestly couldn't tell you.
Pause. The manager is saying that it is a fair process because it's anonymous partner voting. It makes sense, doesn't it? It's anonymous. No one is influencing anyone. It should be fine. The challenge with that is, as we now know, is that we are relying 90% of our time in our automatic thinking, and therefore there's a huge chance of biases driving our decisions. First step is going to be to label those biases, and in my opinion, the possible biases in that approach is similarity bias. We like others who are like us. People who are making those anonymous votes are more likely to vote for people who are like them, similar to them. And experience bias, relying on the confirmation bias, so looking for the evidences to prove our impressions of someone, the halo effect. We're going to talk more in detail about those in a second, so I'm parking them, but there is a chance of that bias kicking in, and also experience bias, thinking that what I'm thinking, what I'm experiencing is what everybody else must be thinking as well. Having anonymous evaluations of a performance without an imperial discussion is not a good practice. However, a good practice would be to have a joint evaluation when people are discussing others' performance, comparing with others, and this way, if we introduce anonymous voting after that, then yes, then it may be a fairer process. And it's not only about fairness, but also more accurate, more objective, more meritocracy based. Let's use some questions that may help you see the bias in place. So if I was in that meeting as that independent person to observe and comment, I would ask the following questions on the process. Based on what evidences the decision has been made? What are the criteria that the people voting are using to evaluate one's performance? How could they evaluate the assumptions about one's performance? What kind of assumptions did they have? What was the thinking process behind making the vote? These are the sense-checking questions I would be asking on that point. Let's listen to it further now.
This is bullshit. This is boys club bullshit, and you know it.
Look, this is a meritocracy.
Pause. Is it meritocracy again? Or does Ali have a point about the boys club impacting, influencing the decisions about her?
Why do you keep on this poker? There's no poker night. If there was a poker night, we would invite you because I'd like to take your money.
Really?
I would ask the question if Ali has access to the same information formally and informally in the current culture, in the current setup. Or I would be asking her, does she have the same kind of interactions with everyone in the team as the majority of them? And can this possibly have an impact on how she's being perceived or viewed in the grand scheme of things? Why would that matter? Let's try to label some of the biases that may be taking place whenever we are talking about something like a boys club. Similarity bias is definitely one of the strong ones in here, and especially the in-group, out-group. This is a very strong bias that basically whoever we feel is part of our group, we would favor them. There's a study of babies that says babies prefer people or groups that treat them well, as simple as. But as soon as 6 months old onwards, babies start to develop preference for the in-group, for people who they know, even if they treat them worse than others. It's a very strong bias, deeply rooted in us. So it can have an impact on the performance evaluation. Another kind of bias that may be taking place is the distance bias. In the movie itself, there is a poker night club when guys get together and play poker.
Shit, I'm missing Real Housewives.
Ali is being actively excluded and not even informed or confirmed that something like that is happening.
No poker night. None. Nada. Zip.
I don't think necessary in today's workplaces there has to be to that extent. I don't think it's as secretive or as exclusive as it's being portrayed in the movie, not as intentionally. In the movie, it's very intentional that they want to exclude her. I think what's happening more in today's organizations is more like people just have different interests. They meet at work, so they get together outside of work, definitely before pandemic. But the question would be, what is the impact of those informal interactions? If there's the distance bias at place, it may potentially mean that if we spend more time with someone in informal setting, it can be even, playing the video games in the office before the pandemic, then we may start to liking those people more or favor them, and it can influence our decision-making process. The boys club is quite easy to dismiss, and I'm a little bit hesitant to call it boys club because that has a very strong negative connotations, and therefore it may alienate people to see where the problem, potential issue may be, and can this really be impacting our decision making, who we are playing the football match with? Doesn't, like, on the logical level, we may argue it doesn't make sense, but on the biological level and how the biases work, actually those things do matter. Now in the movie, the movie is quite direct with the examples, maybe even exaggerated with it.
The story gets better. I'll finish it later.
Oh, come on, Ali can handle locker room talk. Right, bro?
Yeah, I'm sure you'll get the X-rated version at poker night.
The challenges with today's workplaces is that those things are way more subtle and therefore way more difficult to spot or to appreciate the challenges it can bring. A very good example would be rather than the poker night like in the movie, especially in the men-dominated organizations where I did work for tech companies. So one of the challenges we had, for example, or complaints, was that men were forbidden or disencouraged to have football match team because that's not going to be inclusive towards women. And they were like, where's the problem? So the problem isn't, in my opinion, the problem isn't in fact that they're going to go and have much, play football together. There are also guys who don't like playing football. Like, it's not for everyone. It's still not for everyone. That's not the problem. Let's look at this from this point of view. If you are in that organizations, and I appreciate we have pandemic now, but let's think about the time before pandemic. That may be easier to visualize. If you do meet with your colleagues during lunch breaks, during another breaks, you play the video games together, maybe you go or tennis table, or maybe you go out for your football match. If you do engage in those kind of activities, maybe what you could do is write this. Okay. Let's do this exercise. It's a little bit sidetracked, but it might be useful. Let's name everyone. Let's first list everyone in your team. Let's say you have 4 people in your team. So you're gonna have name 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the first table will be put a tick if you engage with them in the informal activities on quite regular basis. For example, go to lunch, play checks with, play football match with, play video games, what have you. Let's say regularly, right? Let's say you do it with person 1 and person 2, but you don't do it as often with person 3 and 4. Then ask yourself, who do you ask for advice, like formal advice, work-related advice? Is it in here? Is it in here? Person, maybe. Then work on a project. Now, we don't always choose what projects we're working on, who we're working with, but think about it, like actively engaging in the project, like really engaging on the project beyond the requirements of the job. Beyond the requirement of the job. Is the person, it is quite likely that, is it like that? Then who are you more likely to recommend for promotion or for project or what have you? Obviously I've made lots of assumptions in here, and this is just an example, but it may be interesting to see if the interaction, if there is any type of correlations with the amount of informal interactions you have with someone, and how is it impacting the very specific work-related interactions. Just like. I don't want to spend too much time on the boys club. It probably requires a separate video, but it's more about, let's use the boys club as an example, but it may be anything else. Whenever we can see a potential of in-groups, out-groups, it can be location-based. It can be something around people who are based in the same office before pandemic. People who work on certain type of projects will more likely create in-group versus out-group, and looking out for those, especially when you're a manager, looking out for, am I favoring this person just because I'm working on the projects with them, for example. Watch out for those. It's worth watching out for those in-group and out-group activities. And just one more thing I wanted to say, whenever we have those informal gatherings or activities, one question to ask would be as well, Are we making assumptions for others and we don't invite them to take part because we think they won't like it, or they would not be able to? A good example would be not inviting parents to the evening activities because you assume they won't be able to do it because of the childcare, or because someone is overweight, you assume they wouldn't like to come because they are overweight for your sport activities, but maybe they would like to join in and cheer you up. You know, you're making decisions for them, and that's exclusive. And it has impact on the performance evaluations, potentially.
Look, this is a meritocracy. So you're not entitled to be a partner.
I'm sorry, entitled? Well, will you name someone who reps more Olympic gold medalists than me? I have clients on the cover of Sports Illustrated and Vogue in the same month.
But you don't have any of the big three clients, do you? The MLB, the NBA, the NFL. I mean, Eddie signed Mitchell Trubisky. That's a #1 draft pick. Boom. Done.
Boom.
Done.
And pause. This is a brilliant example for the experience bias, and specifically the halo effect. I talked about it earlier. Halo effect is when one big achievement or one good thing influences the way we see the person as a whole. If I was in the meeting and I would be able to respond to her manager's comments on why Ed deserves the promotion, I would be asking the following questions. How has he achieved that? How has he got Michael Kepinski? How did he get the person to sign up with them? Is it repetitive? Can others learn from it? Is it a one-off, or is it a strategy others can implement as well? What else has he done? What else has he worked on? What values of the other work he has done? I would also ask, when did he do it? Because potentially there can be a distance bias as well. If he has just signed up a major player, then the chances are the distance bias is working in his favor as well. We like what's closer. If something is recent, that's closer, so that's going to stick in our mind and has a bigger value than something done far long time ago. So I would be asking those sense-checking questions around, is this a one-off? Is this a good achievement? What else is he doing? And how does it compare to Ali's achievement and Ali's work? Is it worth really less than what he's doing? Or is he just benefiting from the halo effect? Now, the movie itself offers us a brilliant example of how the halo effect can actually be damaging, and how we can be making bad decisions relying on the halo effect. Her other colleague, who is a partner, shares actually how did he get to the big sign up that got him the partner role. Let's have a look.
I mean, it should have happened years ago. It's crazy that I'm a partner and you're not, just because I signed Matt Ryan. I mean, come on. I mean, in fairness to me, monster signing, but still.
Yeah, you're right, EJ. It is crazy.
Key to signing Matt Ryan, befriending his wife through mutual friends at PC. What are the odds that we sponsor the same charity? She vouches for me, boom, I'm in.
Oh, shit, man, that's some next level ass kissing right there. Respect.
So if we were asking those questions earlier on, is it repetitive? Is it one-off? Is it ethical? Is it something that, is it a strategy that he applied so others can replicate to get the same results? Or is it just him manipulating or, being cheeky? And interestingly enough, Kevin, another Ali's colleague, is saying this.
I know it was you who voted me down from partner.
What? I voted to make you partner every single time.
Wait. You really voted for me?
Yes, this is a business. I'm a numbers guy. You get the numbers, end of story.
Right.
Okay, and the last one.
Look, so I'm going to be honest with you. You don't connect well with men. I mean, you're doing great in your lane. So let's just stay in your lane. Okay?
Okay, are you finished?
Yeah, I'm good.
Great. I have to go get back in my female lane.
And the comment her manager, Ali's manager, is making by saying you don't connect well with men. This is clearly a similarity bias and the gender bias. I had a separate video on the gender expectations from this What Men Want movie series, so have a look at that. But if I was able to call out and pause again, I would be asking the following questions. How is this impacting her performance? How her connecting or not connecting to men is impacting her performance and her achievements? How her male colleagues are connecting with men, and what difference does it make? What specifically are we talking about in here? And then he's mentioning that she should be staying in her line, she's doing well for her line, and that's it. I would like to think that there are very few managers who would actually say that out loud in today's world, but that nevertheless doesn't mean there are those who don't think it. And I would be asking the questions: what's stopping her from being promoted or achieving the partner role? What would she have to do? What would she have to change? What other achievements would she be needing to demonstrate? I know he's mentioning signing up with the free partners, the big roles, but okay, if it's because she's not connecting well with men, what specifically would she have to do to connect well with men, and why would we expect different result because of that? So there are lots of questions we can be asking in our role as the bias interrupters. In the gender expectations video, I did mention a study that said that women are being evaluated on how they do the work versus men who are being evaluated, commented on what they achieve. Even if women achieve something, they're still being commented on how they've done it and if it's what expected. So it's a real life scenario as well. It's happening in the real life as well. If you would like to learn more, I have prepared a free PDF for you, how to spot and address bias. It has 6 activities around my model of becoming a scientist, so what we have to be looking for, an ally or a rebel as well. So what we can be saying, how we can be addressing the bias in the workplace, how we can be supporting self and others, and an architect, what specifically we can do to interrupt the bias. It has also links to external resources, including David Rock and the Neuroleadership Institute, so you can use it as your resource source as well. It's free, just click on the link below, you can download it from there. And for today, that's it. In my next video from the series, I will be looking at what managers can do to interrupt the bias, what organizations can do to design the process in a way to interrupt the bias, and what individuals can do to what employees can do when they feel their performance evaluations, their career progression is subject to biases. What can they do? What can they say? Thank you so much for today, and see you in the next video. And I hope to hear your comments on what is your experience. Have you been subject to performance biases? Have you struggled as a manager or as an employee? I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much, and until the next one.
I think we all know what this is. And I think we all know who deserves it. Let's give it up for our newest partner, Ollie Davis.
For so many years, all I ever wanted was to be a part of this boys' club. That's all I ever wanted. And I don't want to be a part of your club anymore. I am going to compete and win on my own terms, not yours. So, I'm opening my own agency. Oh, and my partner is going to be...
What? No. Wait, bro, no way.
I'm with her.
Okay, so on that note,